Disturbance of ecosystems. This is a partial food web for the salmon forest ecosystem. This ecosystem is in balance. Carnivores feed on salmon and carry their nutrients into the forest, where they are absorbed by trees. Matter and low entropy energy flow along these paths. What if we disturb just one part of this cycle by removing the decomposers? Without decomposers, the trees and plants would not be provided needed nutrients. The trees would not grow and provide the shade and small ponds by preventing erosion that would help baby trout. Then bears, trout, and eagles would not have salmon to eat. The entire food web will decline. A disturbance to one part of an ecosystem affects the entire ecosystem. Think of a line of dominoes. Once one domino is pushed over or disturbed, all of the dominoes are affected. Many disturbances are caused by human activities. These include hunting, deforestation or cutting down trees, unsustainable fishing practices, and pollution. The American alligator was once thought of as an annoying pest. They showed up in people's pools, golf courses, and ate game fish that people liked to catch. So it was hunted without limit until it became an endangered species. This caused an unlikely result. As the alligators disappeared, so did the game fish, fish that are caught by fishermen for sport. How could the disappearance of the alligator cause fish populations to decrease? The alligator's favorite food is a large fish called a gar that preyed on game fish. With no alligators to hunt them, the gar population increased greatly and ate more game fish. The game fish population plummeted. The alligator was put on the endangered species list in 1967 and was protected from hunting. Sea otters live and hide in the kelp forest ecosystem. Giant kelp are large seaweed that can grow 90 meters in 1 year. Kelp are important producers in the ecosystem and offer protection from predators for many species, including sea otters and hatching fish. In the 18th century, off the coast of California, sea otters were hunted for their beautiful fur. They were also killed by fishermen who thought they were competition for fish. The sea otters were hunted almost to extinction. With fewer sea otters, fishermen began to see changes in the ecosystem. Examine this food web and determine some ways that the loss of the sea otter may have affected the kelp forest ecosystem. Without predation by sea otters, the sea urchin population grew quickly. Sea urchins eat kelp. Without the otters, the sea urchin numbers grew quickly and the kelp beds began to disappear. Then the fish, with no safe place to spawn, began to disappear. In just a few years, the fishermen noticed that the fish were gone. Because the sea otter population has such a large effect on the rest of the ecosystem, they are known as a keystone species. A keystone species is depended upon by all other species in an ecosystem. When the keystone species is removed by a disturbance, the community changes drastically. The jaguar lives in rainforests of Central and South America. It typically eats 87 different types of prey, keeping the ecosystem in balance. The jaguar is a keystone species. The parrotfish is the only species on the Great Barrier Reef that cleans the coral. The coral needs that cleaning to stay healthy. The parrotfish is a keystone species. Keystone species in the Atlantic Ocean are the top predators, sharks and tuna. Based on the simplified food web, what will happen to the community if tuna are removed? The populations of mackerel will increase, the small fish will decrease, the shrimp-like creatures will increase, and the one-celled life, much of which are photosynthetic plankton, will decrease. The population of sharks will decrease. Acid rain, caused by air pollution, makes the soil where it falls acidic. Suppose that acid rain falls on an ecosystem and kills the salamanders and frogs. Use the food web on the next page to determine how the removal of salamanders affects the following populations: snake, dragonfly, phytoplankton, and trout. Here we see the salamander. What happens if we remove the salamander? The snake population will decrease with fewer salamanders to eat. The dragonfly population will increase due to fewer predators. The phytoplankton population will decrease due to more dragonflies eating them. The trout population will decrease as there are fewer salamanders to eat, so eagles will eat more trout. About 95% of U.S. commercial salmon fishing occurs off the coast of Alaska in the summer as the salmon are returning to spawn. The two most common ways that commercial fishermen catch salmon are with gill nets and purse seines. A gill net is a curtain of netting that hangs in the water. The net openings are engineered so that the heads of fish can fit through but not their bodies. As they struggle to back out of the net, their gills get stuck on the netting. The gill net is being hauled up to the fishing vessel. A purse seine is a net that creates a circle around a school of fish. The bottom of the net is pursed together so that fish cannot escape out of the bottom. Then the net is hauled in, collecting every animal inside the net. Gill netting and purse seining are both efficient methods for catching salmon. A large negative side effect of gill nets and purse seines is bycatch, which refers to any organisms caught in a net that were not the target species. Bycatch may include other species of fish, sea turtles, and even large marine mammals, such as dolphins and whales. Watch this video and then state 3 ways that bycatch may disrupt the community. Even if bycatch is thrown back, the animals are usually dead or dying. Many juvenile fish are caught and never reach adulthood to reproduce. Many endangered species are caught, and keystone species may be caught. Scientists and engineers are working to reduce bycatch. Here are a few ideas that have been implemented on gill nets. Dolphins and whales have very good hearing. Devices that emit acoustic sounds can be attached to nets to deter marine mammals from swimming in that direction. Making the mesh size small so that marine mammals cannot become stuck in the nets. And inserting weak links into gill nets so that large animals can break the net and swim free. Click here to watch a video on how to minimize bycatch. Because of the large role they play, fishermen are notified of the locations where it is hard to minimize bycatch and educated as to how to safely return bycatch to the ocean. Overhunting, acid rain, and overfishing. What do all of these disturbances have in common? They are all disturbances caused by humans. Overhunting, acid rain, and overfishing are all human-caused disturbances we have discussed. Other human-caused disturbances include deforestation, unsustainable farming, industrialization, development of cities and suburbs, burning of fossil fuels, disruptive mining, water and air pollution, introduction of invasive species to new environments. Our impacts have affected every ecosystem on the planet, either directly or indirectly. If the disturbance comes and goes, the ecosystem is more likely to recover than if the disturbance, like an invasive species, stays. Fishing with lines and hooks in a lake twice per year will not destroy the lake ecosystem. Fishing with nets in a lake every day will probably destroy the lake ecosystem. Healthy ecosystems absorb small or infrequent disturbances, but will change or collapse if the environment changes drastically. If the ecosystem is high in biodiversity, it is more likely to recover than if it is low in biodiversity. Compare these food webs. If clams die out due to a parasite, which community will survive and which one will collapse? Ecosystem A has greater biodiversity and will survive because it has multiple food chains to support the top predators. The human population has been growing exponentially for hundreds of years. The Earth is a closed system with respect to matter. The human population will reach its carrying capacity when it reaches the limit of available resources. Then the population curve should level off. There is much disagreement among the experts about whether the carrying capacity, the maximum human population possible with the limited resources of the Earth, is closer to 6 billion or 16 billion. Carrying capacity is reached when a crucial resource becomes limiting, or when an environmental factor limits growth. These factors could be fresh water, food, and disease. Humans have the ability to modify their environment and to constantly search for new resources. Throughout history, this has enabled humanity to exceed projected carrying capacities. Population growth is like a game of musical chairs. There is plenty of room for everyone at the party, but only a few people can play the game. As people consume more, the number of chairs shrinks, and even fewer people can play, regardless of more and more people arriving at the party. What does this mean for the Earth's population? Click for activity link.